Welcome to Ocean Stories, a podcast hosted by me, Lydia Carey,
and me, Sarah Hersping. We may not be marine experts or even professional scuba divers, but we are curious about the ocean and ways to protect it.
Every week, we chat with conservationists, researchers, business owners, and anyone else with an ocean story to tell.
So whether you're a scientist or someone who's simply curious about the big blue, you're in the right spot. We can't save the seas alone,
but we can do it together. Welcome back, everybody, to Season 2 of Ocean Stories.
Welcome back! We're so excited to get this started.
Starting off with a bang, we are going to get right to the point today, because if you want to hear us chat and ramble, you can listen to our last 2 episodes.
Yes, we will just get straight to the point. Well, for episode 1 of Season 2, we thought, okay, we need to start this with a really cool person and a shark person because we all know that you guys love sharks. So we were talking to Cristina Zenato.
Cristina was an amazing guest. She grew up in the African rainforest and at some point traveled to the Bahamas, went diving with the sharks, and totally fell in love with them. And now she has been there for over 25 years. Super cool.
Yeah, and I would say that Cristina is famous for all her work with the sharks, but this episode has a lot more topics than that. We kind of it was a roller coaster of topics, but it was so cool, and we actually just went from one thing to another. I think we were really interested in the same things. A lot of climate change related things and what you say, pragmatic environmentalism maybe?
Yeah, some really interesting insights about that.
Exactly, very data-based and fact-based insights. Also, we learned a lot about caves, which personally I had no clue, but caves play a big role in our ecosystem. They actually hold fresh water, but also, you can read a lot about history and potentially about the future in the caves and in the limestone, which I thought was so cool. And Cristina actually is a cave explorer, so she just goes out there and swims through the caves to find new ones.
I don't know about you, but I literally had no idea that there was so many cave systems in the Bahamas.
No, I had no idea either. And I didn't know what the importance was. But I thought it was just a recreational thing to go cave diving.
And
but
imagining diving and exploring those caves and being the first person to go into a deep, dark tunnel underwater. Yeah, that's crazy.
Wild. I was okay, you have to be really brave to dive with sharks, but I feel the caves would give me even more, I don't know, I'm kind of claustrophobic, and the dark, so I'm whoa, this is crazy, and just so cool that she's doing that work.
Cristina also has a nonprofit called People of the Water that's all about ocean education and research. So she's done a ton, and we talked to her about a ton.
And you guys should just listen through this episode because it was so fun. I think you'll love it.
Woo! Welcome to Ocean Stories. Thank you so much for joining. Despite your busy schedule, got a lot going on, so we're really lucky to have you and talk to you today. We ask everyone the same question first, which is, where are you in the world right now?
I am in Freeport, Grand Bahama in the Bahamas.
Okay, amazing. And how long have you been there? I know it's been a while, so I have some spoilers, but just to tell our listeners.
I've been here 30 years. I moved here at age 22, and I've been here since. Well, obviously I travel on and off the island, but this is home.
That's crazy. Well, I'm interested how you got there and where you grew up and how the ocean journey started.
Oh my goodness, that's an entire podcast. So
okay, we'll keep it
I am originally Italian. I grew up in the central savannah and rainforest of Democratic Republic of Congo and the Republic of Congo, former Zaire and Congo. So I have an upbringing very much in the wilderness because of my father's job, which was an engineer for constructions that were hired by governments for roads, railways, bridges, tunnels. So I kind of grew up a little bit of a nomad through these parts and very much in contact with a wilderness that was not really the ocean in itself, but I think that still set up the basis of who I am and how I think. I then moved to the Bahamas at age 22 in 1994, and I came here on vacation to learn how to scuba dive, which was a childhood dream. I wanted to be an underwater scuba ranger, had sharks for friends. That was my childhood dream. I
Wow.
didn't want to be a
What a
ballerina or an
dream.
astronaut. I wanted to be an underwater scuba ranger, went around the ocean telling people what to do, what not to do. And she had this a school of sharks following her and her friends. And I came here on vacation to learn how to scuba dive. A series of circumstances, coincidences, too many to explain. In a week time, I decided to quit my job in Italy, leave my boyfriend, quit the apartment, give the car back to my parents, pack everything in a couple of duffel bags, and landed back here a week later with the intention of staying here for a year,
Oh.
thinking I'll do this for a year, get diving out of my system. I'm still trying to get diving out of my system. And my love for the ocean comes from my family. I was lucky enough that my father is an ex-military diver, so it always loved the water. My mom is from a very watery part of Italy. I mean, it's very hard to be from the mountains in Italy, but uh, and so they come from the ocean. They took me to the ocean. I think one of the most exciting part of my upbringing was every summer as my feet grew, I had to buy a new mask and a new pair of fins. And it was like the most exciting part of buying these tools and then being able to go in the water. So I was
That's
always
so
in the
beautiful.
water at a early stage. Even in Africa, we would drive from the rainforest down to the city. And on the weekends, we'll spend the day at sea on the ocean.
Wow. Oh, that's beautiful. And I love that you already told us your connection to the ocean and how you got into it. So I'm curious. You said you started diving in the early 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that also when you started diving with sharks, or did that come, were you just like scuba diving and then the diving with sharks like entered your life later?
All at the same time. I did my first open water checkout dive. I jumped in the water and there was a shiver of Caribbean reef sharks. And so I
Wow.
surfaced and I was just like, you have sharks here. And everybody was just like, yeah, you dummy. Of course we do. It was really interesting, right? Because my father told me it's so rare to see sharks. You will never see sharks. They're so shy. They don't like people. It's highly unlikely. And here I jump in on my first open water checkout dive and there's this shiver of sharks. So it was immediate. When I made the change, I came under the um, mentorship and then friendship later in life. Unfortunately, they're no longer with us. They left us in 2019. But Ben Rose was the first person that started this work with the sharks that found out that there was a chance for a connection, a relationship. And I was enamored with the entire concept, the entire idea. I thought it was just a childhood dream, and here is a person that is doing it. And so I started working and diving with him. And within a year and a half, he retired and he says, you have this special connection with the sharks. I said, this program should be yours, is yours. And that's how I start developing.
That's special. That sounds like fate from childhood dream to now.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen other interviews with you where you talk about how much you love the sharks and this like special bond with them. And it's honestly really sweet to listen to because so much of the stuff we see is talking about them as super scary. And I can just imagine now there's a lot more messaging about how like we shouldn't be hating on them because they're a super important species and all of this. But I feel like that's sort of because of social media. And I can imagine that then there was even less messaging about like that they're just another animal that you can connect with, just like other animals that you don't need to be like, well, you get what I'm saying. Not this terrifying fear that causes them to be vilified or villainized.
Yes and no. No, yes, because obviously there was less access in a way, right? There was maybe the magazine or the TV program or some documentaries. There was no phones or internet or anything like that. But um, I don't know if I'm going to misquote this one, but if somebody says, in the 80s and the 90s, we were worried that ignorance was caused by the lack of access, and it's proven that not so much that is the issue. So internet itself is not really always spreading the correct informations. And I see that on my own skin. People cut and snip something and they take it out of context. They put it with something else. And I'm pretty sure you're familiar, maybe not. But there's been quite a few actually being very vocal about it. I love sharks, but I think we need to understand sharks for what sharks are, not for what humans would like sharks to be. Not the scary monsters, not the puppy that you can have in your lap in a way. I know I pet sharks, but we'll get to that. And there's these stories where people cut, like the tiger shark trying to eat the turtle being trying to go on the back of the boat, and then it cuts into the turtle on the boat, and people go, oh, look, it's a shark that pushed the turtle to safety on the boat. And I'm like, no, really not. Sorry, but the tiger was trying to eat the turtle, and look, there's 3 different colors boats, and there's actually different people, and one is wearing a jacket, and one is wearing a tank top, and one, it just, so more access and more information does not necessarily mean more education. And so I have seen also the negativity going faster like a wildfire across. And that's just, for example, a shark bite, which to me is the most ridiculous thing to talk about. We have animals that are older than rings of Saturn, older than trees. There's animals with 7 senses. They have so many things that we can talk about. We're one bite every 11 million people, and we make it this thing as if it's like the things that happens all the time. And a lot of it comes from this wild distribution of information. So it's a catch-22. At the same time, like you said, Lydia, yes, there's more access, there's more information, there's more chances of saying, oh, I thought sharks did this, and that's what happened on my social media. They come on social media, and all of a sudden they go, oh, wow, I didn't think sharks could do that, over and over and over and over again. So it has both faces, I think.
That's so true. And I feel like especially now with TikTok and all those apps where everyone is just trying to go viral, people just take things out of consideration. They just take little snippets, piece together what you just said. Like sometimes I watch those videos and I'm like, there's 10 different people, we are in like 3 different locations, it's raining, the sun is shining, like obviously this is not the same spot, but people are just like doing it for the clicks. And then it's so easy to like get hooked on the sharks are crazy. I mean, we all are kind of like a little bit scared of them, so whenever you see a video it's kind of like easy to fall for it and be like, oh, okay, I need the whole story. So yeah, I totally agree with that. But yeah, then on the other end, it's beautiful to see people like you actually on camera swimming with the sharks and seeing all those beautiful interactions.
There's another thing is sneaking up on us, which is AI. Right? It's like the fake videos or the created videos. There's actually a very famous one of the first ones digitally created, which was a great white breaching, and everybody thought was real, but underneath the original one said, no, this is AI created image of a great gorgeous, but it was an AI image now of something real, because great whites do breach, but that picture was not real, was not captured that way in that moment. So there's something else sneaking up. I saw something the other day and I'm like, my brain, as someone who had worked with sharks for 30 years, does not compute. And it's about, oh, look what I found swimming. And there's a video, it's kind of like over under of the water. And then when it puts the camera under, is a great white that is bumping into the camera, and you can see all the teeth and everything. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I have to question that. So there's a lot coming. Hopefully some is positive, but there's only going to be a lot of stuff to sift through. Anyway, back on track.
Yeah, that's so true. I keep seeing the videos where surfers are duck diving and then there's just sharks and they pop back up, and it's clearly two different videos like merged together, and I'm like, stop showing me this. I don't want to have that in my head. So,
although if you follow a friend of mine, Scott Fairchild out of La Jolla, he actually drones surfers, paddleboarders, swimmers with gray white swimming underneath him every day. I absolutely
Yeah, it's
love
crazy.
Australia. That
It's
is the
great.
reality of humans being in the water. That's it. That's a reality. We are in the water, and the sharks are there. And 99.99999% of the time, the sharks will go, oh, what? Oh, definitely not something for me, and investigate. I really love that educational. So yes, you're right, Lydia and Sarah. There is access to this positive, but even Scott, for example, or I receive these messages from people going, that's fake. You're going to get somebody killed. You're going to end up like Steve Irwin. There's this is almost like rooted into people's brain. And there's something, as I was just reading this morning, as a psychological issue. If you have a strong political conviction or a strong conviction, right? Sharks are man eaters. And no matter what scientific proof I will bring to you, no matter what reality proof I will bring to you, your brain will try to find pathways to deny what is presented to you.
Absolutely. Confirmation bias, but the opposite form.
Correct.
I mean, that's a really important perspective. I'm super happy you shared it. We talk about this a little bit, but maybe not enough, because we also talk about North Sea videos that are quite viral on the internet, and people having this conviction that they're terrified of the ocean and that it's a super dangerous place and all of this. And the videos are some of them, not all of them, are fake. They're pieced together from places that are not the North Sea at all. And we talk about that. But when you don't know, if you didn't grow up near the ocean, like, you wouldn't know whether that video is fake or not. I don't know. So there definitely
Correct.
is, you need to give everything a second look, for sure. And that's something I'm really glad we're talking about, because sometimes even I kind of you just get in a zone and you just forget.
That's what
Anyways.
I do when somebody sends me a video. Say, "Oh, look what happened here." I usually look at the video and I do recognize it myself, maybe an emotional response. And then I pause. I have people sending me a video all the time. Are you going to say something about this? And say, let me look at the video again. Right? And everybody's so quick on being either very aggressive, very positive, very negative, whatever you want, fill in the blanks. So I usually pause on the videos, and then 3, 4, 5 days later, and you'll see that through my social media. Somebody does something to a shark and everybody just overreacts and calls them name. And, a week later, I'm kind of like, I have something to say. And I sit there and I just think it over a little bit. And I think that's what we are not doing. We're so quick on swiping that we don't have the time to even finish reading a full caption sometimes, and really absorbing, and sometimes trying to put ourselves into the other side of the scenario. And I think that's what's happening with sharks. With sharks, we look at sharks and interpret sharks according to human standards. And it's by default incorrect. You can't look at sharks by human standards. I mean, we are so far removed from who they are and who we are. I usually use this example, and just to make people understand, right? If you have a dog eats slurping the food out of the dog bowl. So I had the tongue, and you would never look at the dog going, oh, terrible table manners. My goodness, who taught you how to eat like that? Obviously, if somebody at the table did it, a loved one did it at the table, we were kind of like, yeah, definitely bad table manners. But we don't judge the dog eating out of the bowl according to human standards. Yet sometimes we judge some shark behaviors according to human standards. That's where the aggressive, vicious, lurking words come out in describing sharks. But sharks don't lurk. I mean, they live there. Oh, they're coming so close to shore. It's kind of like, it's still the water. It's not that they go, oh, I'm going to ambush them. I'm going to come close to show my dorsal fin and scare the humans. They don't do that kind of stuff. It's the water. This is where they live. A lot of sharks come close to shore because actually there's quite a lot of food available that is washed off by, oh, wow, human garbage. So there's all that stuff that we need to start interpreting. Vicious, there's no viciousness. The shark, It can be scary. It's in our DNA. It's in our ancestors. Thank goodness our ancestor had that in their DNA, to run away from an animal that was a predatory kind and being afraid, because of that kind of fear always made them be careful going out of the village, right? But at the end of the day, how an animal eats is not vicious. That's how the animal eats. It's not bad table manners. So even what could be to a human a terrifying and sometimes debilitating. I'm not diminishing when a person gets bitten by a shark, the damage of the death that the bite can bring. But it's not vicious. That is, in the moment the shark, being a shark, given a bite for the reason that nature said, that might be food. There's no ill intent. And I think once we take away the emotional to that, maybe we can start understanding them a little bit better. And that's what I try to do.
That's such a good point. And I feel like humans also always try to kind of personify a lot of animals, and we're trying to understand animals with the way humans are. And we're like, oh yeah, this animal behaves like or thinks like a 5-year-old child or whatever. I don't know if that's like true for sharks, but it's kind of like we need to understand that they don't think like us. It doesn't work like us. We can't just attribute our emotions to them and then try to make sense of all of it. Well,
that's a good point, Sarah.
Yeah.
When you said the 5-year-old child, right? We say, oh, this animal is as mature as a 3-year-old child. And we deny that animal actually the benefit of having a totally different language, of having a totally different system of communication. So you're like, well, a dolphin's as mature as a 3-year-old child because they only have so many words. So I'm like, yeah, they also have echolocation that no human has, right? So their perception of the world is obviously completely different. So you cannot even compare. And I totally agree with you. Please do not compare an animal to the level of a human child, teenager, adult, old person, dog, cat, or anything. They are who they are. And they have things of way going through the world that we can only dream of.
So true. And every time someone says like, oh, that's a 17-year-old child, I'm like, so they can drink a beer now? Or what does that even mean? Like, how do we categorize that? Well, I really want to know a little bit more about you and the sharks and your diving, and you already kind of touched on it a little bit, that you have like a special connection with them. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
My diving is professional diving. So for a living, I am a professional diver, and I specialize in taking people on shark encounters and educational and the technical diving. When I started working with the sharks, it was very much a childhood dream come true and part of my profession. And then what happened is, I think what happens in a relationship, with time and repetition and spending a lot of time together, we start understanding each other. Or maybe, hopefully, I start understanding them a little bit more. And I feel that's what I have. That's the reason why you'll see me doing what I do with a specific shiver of Caribbean reef sharks here on Grand Bahama. But you won't see me going around the world trying to do what I do here with everyone else, because one size does not fit all. The relationship that I have with these sharks is not the relationship that I have with the other sharks. Now, living and working with these sharks has taught me quite a lot of shark behavior, shark ecology. That is what I also try to transfer. So maybe I'm more comfortable in the water with many different species of sharks. But what I have here is the special. I have 3 dogs in the house of quite a big size, 140, 89, and 55 pounds. So a mixed Rottweiler, a Pit Bull, and a Mutt. But the relationship that I have with them, I will never allow myself to reach out like that to any other dog, even the dog of my friend that knows me, that comes up, sniffs me, and I can pat him on the head and everything. I will never handle that dog the same way I handle my dogs because of the relationship. And I think that's what I have with the sharks. It starts from love. I love sharks. I mean, I had, like I said, this childhood dream, and here I am, 52 years old, still realizing my childhood dream of being in the water with sharks. And being able to introduce people to the sharks and being able to observe their behavior and being able to record what they do, who they are, being able to become a little bit of an ambassador, share something about them. And at first it was very selfish. First of all, it was me and the sharks. Do not interfere with my time with the sharks. And then I realized that most of the people did not feel the way I felt. You're right, especially back then. There was like all these warnings. And so I was just like, no, you need to understand. And so I would come up from the dive and explain, hey, this is what happens. This is where sharks are. The problem with our culture is we say sharks and people just hear da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. And, to me, it's like you say sharks and it's like saying birds. Not all birds fly. Not all birds sing beautifully, and not all birds nest in trees.
That's
And
so
sharks
true.
is the same thing. So we need to start. There's not one size fits all. There's not one answer for all the questions. Not all sharks behave the same. Their diet goes from plankton all the way to seals, with everything and anything in between.
That's actually such a good point because, yeah, like you said, I feel like sharks is always one category. And then people maybe know about whale sharks and they're kind of like, they fall into a different category, but nobody really knows why. I mean, talking about the general population. But that's such a good point. There are so many species and they behave in so many different ways.
Well, it's like they call the nurse sharks and the whale shark docile. So they go from the bull shark. Oh, I heard the bull shark is so aggressive. That's a word that they use. And then they go, oh, but the nurse shark is so docile. And it's like, yeah, do you know what's the shark that bites a lot of people? Is the nurse shark. You know why? Because people are not respectful of the animal and its environment and the nature of the animal. And so what do? They pull the tail of the nurse shark. And then the nurse shark turns around and has the suction bite and bites a person. Yes, it's not fatal. It's a suction. It's a little bit of a bruising or anything like that. But people forget that. And I look at these people and I say, docile and aggressive do not belong to the vocabulary to speak about sharks. Neither of them, I think, identifies an animal behavior. It's a human connotation.
So
Right?
true.
And because of that interpretation, then there's an erroneous interpretation of the animal. So I feel free to pull the tail of a wild animal. I'm like, what person walks by somebody's yard, sees a dog in the yard, and pulls the tail of the dog in the yard?
We are right there with you. We were walking in La Jolla and the seals were out. And Sarah was telling me about how people walk up to the seals and like try to pet them, and there's baby ones and they think they're so cute. And it's just, I don't want to judge them because I'm sure there is some like educational aspect that's missing there. But it's also like, what would compel you to walk up to a seal and to touch it and to try and mess with
3,000-pound
it?
seal.
Yeah, like, first of all, that's brave. That's brazen. But second of all, it's just, you would think that that isn't common sense. But then again, it makes me question education. But that's a whole other rabbit hole to go
I
down.
go by the you don't know what you don't know. And usually I do
exactly.
it in when people tend to be very intense towards a certain culture. For example, people that fin sharks for shark fin soup, and they're like, oh, they are, and they use these names that I think they're unnecessary. Yelling at someone that has a certain culture doesn't help. Understanding that culture, finding someone that speaks their language and communicating with them through a cultural approach and a correct language actually obtains way more results. And I know this because I've been many times invited in Singapore as well as in China on many campaigns against shark finning. So I usually start with, you don't know what you don't know. And it's one of the other things that I do is mind your language. Is in my language alone, a shark is a squalo. But if you go to the market, and I did a post the other day, there's about a dozen names, none of which sounds like squalo. To give you an example, squalo is shark in general. Palombo, you don't need to speak Italian to understand that the sound is completely different. It's a shark. But the woman that goes to the market and buys the fish without the bones that calls palombo maybe doesn't think, oh, that's a shark. And I'm saying this from experience. I say this from my mom, from my grandmother. So when I speak to people, when I try to educate, I try to think, how would I want these people to address my grandma? You don't know what you don't know. She didn't know, but she bought the fish without the thorns. Right? She bought the palombo, she bought the smerillo. And then as you learn, you say, hey, mom, look, did you know? And she goes, okay. And slowly walks away from it. So I think that is the best approach is, we don't know what we don't know. Let's approach someone. Obviously, there's the people out there that are doing it for the sake of doing it to upset people. But in general, I think that's the best thing to do is work on that.
Yes.
Not always easy.
I'm so passionate about this specific topic, especially with ourselves and with others. I could go on a whole rant about this, but I love talking about, you almost exactly said something I say all the time, like, then I didn't know better, but now I know better, so I can do better. And I say that in relation to like personal things in my life, but I think it applies to so many different topics, and you can also apply it to other people. You know, they didn't know better. Once they do know better, if they're still doing something, then it's a question. But it's such a more compassionate way to go about environmental education, and I think that that is a more effective way than blaming. And you know, every situation as well has its own context, so this is a blanket statement, but overall I do think it's a more compassionate way.
Business highlight. A major issue with a lot of the biggest sunscreen and body care brands is that they are formulating their products with harmful chemicals that are dangerous for human health. We're talking potential carcinogens. We're talking endocrine disrupting chemicals that are hurting human health, that hurt oceans and the marine life that live in them. We have discovered a brand that we're absolutely obsessed with that is working to combat this problem. Stream to Sea is one of the only brands that is EWG tested, which is a really strict testing for skincare products to make sure that it's reef safe, ocean safe, human safe, and they passed all those things. So their products are 100% clean. We started using almost all their stuff, and we are literally diehard fans and obsessed. It just feels so good to wear something that is totally safe for you and totally safe for the ocean. They have a wide range of sunscreen, which I love all of them, honestly, but my favorite one is the glitter one. It's so cool. Also love their leave-in conditioner, their body lotion. What's your favorite product?
I really like to use their leave-in conditioner. It smells amazing, even though it's fragrance-free. And I also really like their body shampoo 2-in-1. I used to be a non-believer in 2-in-1s, but I actually really like the way this smells and the way it makes my body and hair feel. On the podcast, we talk a lot about supporting brands that are better for us and better for the environment, and Stream to Sea really embodies that. It's a woman-owned brand. Everything is made in the United States. They're based in Florida, and they're always trying to make new products that are safe for us and safe for the environment.
If you're convinced and you want to try Stream to Sea, make sure to use Ocean Stories at checkout to get 10% off and to support our show. Back to the episode.
I know we, know about some of your iconic conservation work, and I was going to ask you about that, but now I kind of want to know. I feel like people, if they want to know more about that, it's on Google, you can see it, or if you want to talk about it, you can. I want to know more about sort of like your reflections doing all of this sort of iconic conservation work, or the biggest lessons you've learned, because just in your experience diving, there's been a lot of protections, from what I understand, of the sharks in your area. So if you could talk about that, I think it's super interesting.
Well, my perception is that it's not that iconic. I was just sitting there the other day talking to my husband saying, I feel like I come to a stall, to an end. I wish I could contribute more. And it was just like, just look at the amount of people that you talk to every day, that call you, that you spend time educating, and then do a presentation like Russia, India, weird places in the world. The conservation work, I think Baba Diom said this in 1968, right? In the end, we will only protect what we love, we will love what we understand, and we understand what we are taught. And going in reverse, I think that is, he said that in 1968 United Nations, and it's just like, this is absolutely true. So I live my life by 3 words: exploration, education, and conservation. Exploration, because I believe we need to explore not only the unknown, which I do, but also the known. And I give an example. My known in 1990s was that every time you went in the water with sharks, there was a risk of getting bitten and being hurt. It was unheard of being able to dive with tiger sharks without being attacked, which is a word that I don't like using, but that's a word they used. That was known. So it was a known fact. And as I started diving with sharks, it was this known on the surface, and then I was underwater. And the known did not match what I was observing. So sometimes it is okay to explore the known. That's what I started doing with the sharks. That was the known. I explored. I'm like, I'm sorry, but the known has to change, not only the unknown. So to be explorers doesn't mean going to the moon or going to uncharted caves, which is a lot of fun, but education comes second. Once we've known something, once we realize that the known or the unknown or something is not matching, then we need to educate ourselves so then we can educate others. And I think only after that comes conservation. Once we've known, once we've educated, once we've learned to love it in the end, once we totally understand, and then it's easier. Now that has been my journey. My journey has been of passion, of wanting to be a cave diver, wanting to be with the sharks, realizing that my passion was not shared with the magnitude of people. And so in order for me to keep my passion, protect, I needed for the people to see the worlds I was encountering through my eyes, my perception, maybe that change of the known into a new known. And I think that's what my education has done. From results, in 2011, I was able to start, and then thanks to the Bahamas National Trust and the Peer Organization, we were able to push for the full conservation of sharks in the entire archipelago of the Bahamas. So we're a complete shark sanctuary. We're one of the most comprehensive legislations ever. I'll give you an example. Somebody accidentally reels in and kills a shark. They cannot keep the shark. They had to release it into the ocean and let it go. And a lot of people say, but that's wasted meat. Yes, but that prevents the accidental 10 sharks a day. Ooh, I accidentally killed 10 sharks today. So if you catch a shark, you need to release it dead, live, dead, whatever it is. You have to release it, and that prevents the accidental catching of 100 sharks for the fins today. And then the other one that I participated, which is, I'll come back for another podcast, is caves. We have a lot of caves in the Bahamas, and I'm very much related to the health of the land, the mangroves, the sharks, the corals. And so I've been very involved into the exploration, mapping, and expansion of marine protected areas over 2 key areas on this island alone. A cave that is now over 34,400 feet of lines and the entire land over it. So that is where my conservation work has gone.
That is so interesting, because I saw some of your videos diving through the caves, and not gonna lie, that triggers fear in me, because I get claustrophobic thinking about this. But I was wondering what the purpose was. So that's really interesting that you say that they're super important for the entire ecosystem, because I didn't really connect the dots there. I just thought like, okay, it's just a cave. So I mean, what are like some, without making this a huge topic, but what are some things that they're affecting? How do they affect the ecosystem? Is there like 3 key things that they're important for, just to understand caves a little bit more?
They connect the inside of the island with the ocean. So whatever you reverse over them filters through the limestone into them and goes into the ocean. Whatever you throw into the ocean filters through the water and goes back into them. They're a freshwater reservoir. So you pollute them, you pollute your fresh drinking water. And they are literally the circulatory system of full ecosystems. And they connect what is the forest with the underground, with the water, with the mangroves, where then all the nurseries are. That's what caves are. Never mind that they're a book over the history of this planet, what it was, what it is that we are doing to it right now. You can actually find it in caves, and most likely they give you a glimpse into what it will be. And I was talking with someone the other day, I was giving them a quick example. People are fighting one versus the other on the global warming. The planet has gone through right now what is a very, very, very quiet period. You start reading about the planet, I mean, between volcanoes and this and that and all of that. So let's not call it global warming, but let's call it the end of the meltdown. We are at the end of the meltdown. There are already geological facts that prove through the caves here in the Bahamas that the ocean has been already 20 feet higher than it is now. It has happened. It may happen again. You want to say it's a human-induced, it's not human. Out of the conversation. The concept is the planet can go 20 feet below sea level where it is now. It is carved in the rocks. So as a human, instead of this, it's they're fighting about the legitimacy of the words that you use. It's human. It's okay if it has happened before, and there are signs now that it might happen again. There are scientific signs that we are on the path of going back to those 20 feet higher. What are we going to do? And I'm not saying, the carbon. I'm really literally saying, what are you going to do with the 60 million people that live in Kuala Lumpur when the ocean will be 20 feet higher? What are you going to do in Italy? What are you going to do in the Netherlands? What are you going to do in the Bahamas? We're 210 feet above sea level. The highest point of the Bahamas is 210 feet above sea level. So that's what caves for me are. There's a resource of information, and they connect what we do on land, what happens in the oceans, what happens to the sharks. So if you have any desire to protect anything, just yourself and your kids, if it's just yourself and your kids, all of this that we walk on, everything that we deal with, and in this small ecosystem even more so, requires our attention, our understanding, our protection.
I'm blown away by caves. It does make a lot of sense, and it makes sense that...
Me too. Consider me educated. I did not know that caves held all of this information.
Explore
inside.
the unknown right here. Wow, that's so interesting. So, I'm just a little... When you work in the caves, what does that look like? Because I saw a little video of you actually, tying a knot and then pulling a string, so I assume you know your way back out. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? So you're just That's going correct. Into the cave and exploring and trying to find new nooks and new caves or ways through to the next cave?
Yes, so there's different kinds. Cave diving in itself is a discipline for divers. Divers go cave diving for fun. So they're divers that become cave divers. They go to Mexico, they come to the Bahamas, they go to Bermuda, and they follow the lines that already are in the caves. There's a training that goes with following this line. I am what they call a cave explorer. So I actually may be going down somebody else's line and then look at the cave and see that the cave has a potential to go somewhere else. Or, like in the case of 2020, my husband and I found 2 brand new caves, completely full, open everything, and we laid over 50 miles of lines between the 2. When we explore, now when we cave dive, right, so when we cave dive, we follow the line, we mark the line. It's like a GPS, right? When we explore, we lay the line, and that's what you may be seeing me doing is I lay the line into the unknown, and that line is what's going to take me out. So there's also technique on how to lay the line, how to read the line, and that's part of cave diving. What we're looking for is how far this cave goes, because a lot of people know where the entrance of the cave is the caverns, right? The springs, the Florida Springs. Oh, this is cute little nice clear water Florida Springs, splash, splash, splash. But where does it go? what under what it goes. For example, we found tunnels in some caves, and we pass it by somebody's pipes, and it says sewage, and we're like, oh. So you're swimming underneath somebody's home, and there's the pipe that they threw down from past the cave. It goes from the land past the cave and keeps on going down into the ground, and it's the sewage. And it literally, the pipe, the PVC pipe, we have video that says a sewage on it. We're like, nice. So then you come back and you do a map, and you overlap it with Google Earth, and you can actually literally see where the cave goes. Imagine if you can have a map of our circulatory system, right? Some of us, you can see some of the veins, so you know where the veins go. Well, imagine that was a see-through, and you'll be able to see all the capillaries and everything how it goes. That's what we're trying to do with cave exploration. It says, how far under our feet this cave goes. So if you build a chemical factory over there, is it over the cave? I understand that as humans we build things that everybody goes, oh no, we should never have that. It's kind of like, well, if we should never have that, the three of us would not be here on the computer, I would not be underneath the lights, and we would not be able to talk. So, but there's maybe a safer place and a better place and a different place where it can be contained more. And so that is what it is. It's like we surface the cave. We bring the cave to the surface for governments and entities like the Bahamas National Trust to go, no, we really need to protect this area from any development because there's so much below it. However, in this area, there's not really much underneath it. Nothing that we have found. Sometimes caves you can't find them, but maybe there are. But at least maybe we can develop here. And I think that is an important work, is balancing our presence, our development, with also the preservations of areas that instead are key to our presence and our development. Because here in the Bahamas especially, we're the third world country, a lot of people talk about wealth, right? We need wealth, we need jobs, the cruise ship is coming in, this is going doing that, we're going to build the port and all of that. But I sit there and I sit very much after I've swum through a healthy cave system and a sick cave system, which is being polluted by human presence above. And I cannot, maybe because I'm also getting older, I cannot think that the biggest wealth that we need as humans is health. And once we destroy our capability of staying healthy, the health of our planet, then there's no wealth that can replace that.
Yeah, that is so true. Wealth is... What's the concept of money if the planet isn't healthy? No. Wait, I'm all with you there. That is so true.
I know, I'm literally just processing it because we
That's not
often
what you
talk
expected?
about... No, I just think we often talk about how to protect the ocean, but at large the earth, we're going to need different perspectives, different approaches. And I feel like I'm really happy that we're talking to you because you have a very data-driven, scientific research, education, sort of pragmatic approach to conservation, just from this conversation. I don't want to put words in your mouth. And I think that's important, especially now that environmentalism can become so politicized so easily, that it's good that we have people working from all angles. We have people doing artsy, very emotional things to get people into environmentalism. We have people doing scientific research saying, look, you might not like the politics of it, but the sea level is going to rise and we got to figure something out. And I think having all those different angles is super important. And that's what's striking me about what you're saying is I'm really happy we have this perspective to share with people, because I don't know if we've had the sort of that perspective on before.
Yeah, pragmatic would be a good word. From an emotional creature, I'm a very emotional creature. I'm Italian, but it's really interesting. In some of these things, I tend to be way more pragmatic. I try to eliminate, because it is polarized. It's actually really funny when you say environmentalism. It makes me feel like when, and we're all three women, we can even talk about that. When people go, "Are you a feminist?" and I'm kind of like, a feminist should not have a negative connotation in the word. A feminist is about making women on the same understanding, appreciation, and level on all sorts of rights, pay, health that men have. And to be honest with you, one of the things that we forget as Western women, I think we're a minority in this world, a super privileged minority in this world, and we're still not at the level where we should be. Imagine the rest of the world. I read countless books about this. So it's really funny that both environmentalism and feminism have become almost this negative, scarlet letter you're supposed to wear on your coat, just like, a adulteress. And it needs a different approach. Being an environmentalist doesn't mean being a polarized person all the time. It has to be pragmatic. I am an environmentalist. I am a feminist. I just think we need to be going at it with this approach of like, also this, what are the other point of views? What is the balance? Because it's easy to say, well, I don't want oil drilling. Oil drilling is bad. Okay, then put your phone down, turn your lights off, and start, I don't know, chopping some wood to put in the fire. But that cuts down the force. It's like, oh, okay. So where we go with this? And I sit there, and sometimes it's a rabbit hole. It's a rabbit hole that is a labyrinth, and I don't have all the answers. And I think the most important thing is to sit there and go through what is. I was reading something, and I'm jumping from topic to topic, but I think this is the part of what is environmentalism. I was reading, did you know why we have plastic shopping bags in the stores? Oh, the evil plastic shopping bag was created to stop using paper bags, because the paper bags force the trees to be cut down. So everybody goes, we have the solution. No more paper bags in the store. Here's the plastic shopping bags that solve the problems of cutting down the forest. No more paper bags. And everybody went, yay! Right? To the certain point, we're drowning in plastic bags, and everybody goes, evil, evil plastic bags. So this country bans plastic bags. You know what showed up back in the stores? The paper bags. And I'm like, no. We need to go forward. You need to bring your own bags. You need to have your canvas bags. But you don't know what you don't know. So all of a sudden, the food store here, bless them, absolutely, just like, I look at them and I'm kind of like, I love you very much. May I talk to the manager, please? And he's like, look, we're living in the plastic bags because they're so bad for the Bahamas. When I use paper bags now. And how do you approach that? So you go and you say, you should actually promote having, and now they start having, the logo bags that you can have, the canvas bags, but that moves forward.
It's certainly a complex, wicked problem. There's so many actors, so many groups of people involved, and now it's like all of these things have global implications. It's overwhelming. I have to remind myself to be patient and just slowly figure this stuff out, because I know that for people that aren't interested in these topics, they hear that and they're like, well, if paper's not good and plastic's not good, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, let's just take a breath and we can all figure this out together. We can chart a path forward that causes the least amount of harm.
We don't have to solve. You can save the world. There's actually a song that says, I thought I could save the world. I realized I only have two hands. We only have two hands each. If I tried to solve all the problems that this island alone has, I would drive myself insane, which I almost did at a certain point. So there's sometimes we also have to take a step back, take a breather. But I also believe that in the story of the star thrower, the kid is on the beach after a storm and he's putting sea stars back into the water. And the old man questions him. He says, what are you doing? He says, oh, the sea star has been stranded. I'm putting them back into the water. Try to help. The old man says, that's pointless what you're doing. There's, millions and millions of sea stars. There's miles and miles of this beach alone. There's plenty beaches even further. He says, you will never make a difference. And he picks up that one sea star, puts it back in the water, and says, well, I made a difference for that one. And I think when we feel overwhelmed, when we think we want to change all of it, is maybe we should try to do one sea star at a time, one small change in our life at a time. Become familiar with that till it becomes comfortable. Then the next a small change, and then the next small change. And then don't expect the world, when you have done a path, right? Down a path, an evolution, which could be choices on how you clean your home, food choices, way of transportation choices, consumption choices. When you're down that path, don't turn around and look back where there's people at the start point and start yelling at them for not doing what you're doing. And that, I think that's part of the try not to be overwhelmed first, and then not overwhelm others. I do believe that there's very few people that from the upbringing, there's few, but there's very few people from the upbringing that had it all figured out as kids, as consumption, food choices, movement choices, how to live their lives choices. We all went through paths because we didn't know what we didn't know.
That's, yeah. I don't even know what to say. I'm just like, silence, take it in. Think about what we just said, what you just said. I love the sea star story. I actually think about that quite a lot sometimes when everything gets overwhelming. It's a good picture to have, to just picture a sea star. And also what you said, I feel like it's almost the same like New Year habits. Like you get interested in environmentalism or changing things and you want to do it all at once, but nobody can actually keep up with that many things. Just like on January 1st, everyone's like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to eat healthy. Like, take a few and follow through. And then once you have built the habit and it's actually established, pick a new one instead of like throwing everything out.
I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. I believe in the moment you decided to do it, just do it. Don't wait for New Year's. If it's October and you decided to do something, do it in October. And by the time New Year's comes, there's actually, you already have acquired a routine for it. But I do figure it out with myself is one small change here and there all of a sudden becomes the routine. Once it's routine, then you can look at the next one. And there's certain things that I honestly, I could sit here and I can say I'm an environmentalist, and people go, oh, but they live on an island. And it's kind of like, And guess what? Every time I need to move off this island, I need to fly. So I will never have to have it 100% perfect, we should not exist. But we're here, we have a presence, we have a carbon footprint. Is how we're going to mitigate it. What are the choices that we're going to do? And not everyone has to do all the choices. We can alternate within the choices. My choices may be different from yours, but judging somebody's choices compared to mine and saying yours are not as valuable, I think that is also an incorrect attitude.
I feel like especially with environmentalists, it's a lot of the time people are trying to like find the one thing that you mess up or however you want to call it, and then people are trying to attack like someone who's doing a great job, but they're whatever, just like you said, they may be flying quite a lot because that's part of their job. People will pick at them and be like, oh yeah, you're not even a credible environmentalist if you're flying. No, but that's not the point of it. And if everyone is aware of, let's say, 15 things and is perfect at those 15 things, then we already, like the whole world's already a lot better.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I fly, and when we fly, we always try to look for a place, like as we fly, walk through and that's a small thing, right? But every airport we fly through, we try to look if somebody's using a plate with forks and knives and glasses, and that is the place we're going to stop and eat. We try not to do takeouts and plastic boxes, and I know it's silly, right? If you do that in the airport, you feel, oh, that is dumb. There's all the other millions of people in the same airport all doing this plastic thing, but there's two of us less that don't do that. Or the water bottle that you refill, right? Which you refill before going on the plane, so you don't use a plastic cup on the plane. And small things. Some people might think they're useless, but to me, I do believe in the star, sea star.
Love that. I've never heard that story before, so thank you for sharing that.
Robert Iser. There is actually 16 pages essay. The poetry behind it is a little bit more complex. It's beautiful. The story in itself has been summarized by the internet for other purposes. But further down in the story and the poetry, and I'll leave you with, let you ask the last questions, is he actually talks about how the old man goes back to his cabin and starts thinking about that. And then the next day it goes and actually joins. And there's a whole 16 pages, I say. He goes and back and joins. And part of the poetry says, and then there were others. And so it doesn't stop at the kid doing something for the sea star. It's just in the poetry continue. And then there were others. And that's a thing. I pick a balloon. Somebody sees me picking up balloons. Next thing you know, maybe their neighborhood, they pick up a couple of balloons. Wonderful. So if you have a chance to read the entire essay, Robert Iser.
I'll have to check that out. I like poetry. Well,
last question.
We have one question we ask everyone that comes on to Ocean Stories, and the name kind of implies it. It's, what is your favorite ocean story? Could be a memory, it could be an experience, anything relating to the ocean.
Wow, only one?
I know it's hard.
The first and every time a shark comes into my lap and allows me to pet her. The moment she initiates this, because it's her choice to do that. I think that is the most beautiful memory that I actually get to repeat over and over and over again. A privilege that I am privy to, that I never take for granted. And seeing octopus being born on night during a night dive.
Wow.
Had to throw in another one.
Yeah.
I had to share that one.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah, that is so unique and beautiful. That's a great ocean story.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone listening, wow, I feel like I need to brain dump this. Like, I need to just think about all of the topics we talked about. Thank you for listening. We will include Christina's nonprofit organization link. It's People of the Water. We didn't even talk about that, but you can check it out. We'll include that in the show notes. And we'll also include her socials if you want to follow along the Bahamas cave everything journey. You can do that. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Ocean Stories. If you'd like to follow along on Instagram, you can find us at oceanstories_podcast for updates and behind the scenes.
We'll also be sharing our ocean adventures on YouTube at Ocean Stories Podcast. If you like this episode, please show your support by leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Join us next Tuesday for more Ocean Stories.